Joining us now on BYU Sports Nation is our good friend, dual threat analyst extraordinaire, Blaine Fowler, quarterback at BYU of the national champion Cougars, and now an excellent basketball analyst as well. Let's start with hoops, Blaine. Are you buying St. Mary's at 18-2 coming to Provo and winning tonight?
Well, you're talking about buy, sell, or trade. I'm not buying that they come into Provo and win, and it's a really good basketball team. It's as balanced and as talented a team as they've had over there in a long time. And they come in here 18-2, but there's two things that make me go, I'm going to wait and see. So I'm going to wait and see on them. First of all, they haven't played outside the state of California, and they're really, really young. So unbelievably talented, but very young. The guys that hurt BYU in that first meeting, think about it. Junior, sophomore, freshman, sophomore. Young players do not compete as well or play as well on the road as they do at home. And so the second half of the conference season is a big test for St. Mary's. They were loaded up with in-state and home games in the first half. So I'm not saying I'm going to sell them either. They're a hold right now to me because I've got to wait and see if this young group can play as well on the road and out of the state of California as they have up to this point.
I'm with you, Blaine. It's interesting because I see a good basketball team. I see a team that beat BYU in the first matchup, but BYU at home just plays so well. Yet St. Mary's takes care of the ball. They shoot a high percentage. They get to the rim. They play solid defense, second in the country, giving up 60 points a game. So how does BYU beat St. Mary's tonight?
Well, if I look back at that last game, BYU has to be more on attack than they were in that last game. And the problem with that is mentally you go into that game and you go, oh, man, this is a really good team defensively, and we always talk about balance on offense. Oh, they've got a good inside-out game. They've got this, they got that. But there's the same thing defensively. They've got big guys that they can put out on the floor, 6'10 and 6'11 and Fitzner and Landell. And so they've got stoppers inside. They've got good quickness on the perimeter. And I think teams hesitate to attack them because they think, oh, they're so big, so long, so athletic inside that we'll settle for jump shots. That can't happen tonight. I think Collinsworth needs to attack. He needs to force those guys to foul. BYU needs to get to the free throw line. When they're shooting jump shots, it needs to be inside out because they've attacked inside, they've forced them to play interior defense, and they've kicked it to the outside. If we see BYU dribbling into threes, I'm okay with threes in transition, but in the half court, if they're dribbling into threes, pulling up off of screens into threes, not good for BYU. And they need to get to the free throw line. In that last game, SMU or St. Mary's, I call them SMU. St. Mary's was +9 in makes at the free throw line. That cannot happen at home for BYU.
Blaine, you talked about the things that have to go right for BYU to get a win tonight. But in your realistic opinion, how do you see this game playing out? Is it going to be a pace and tempo that St. Mary's likes, low scoring, kind of drag it out, or can BYU at home with that big crowd push the pace?
I'm glad you mentioned the crowd, Spencer, because that's really important. It's important for BYU to get energy from that group because when you get a big crowd and it's noisy, it impacts everybody. It impacts officials as much as they like to say it doesn't. They let a little bit more go when you're being really aggressive and the crowd is into it. It feeds the home team to get out and push the ball. It feeds BYU style, and it makes the visiting team panic a little bit. They start to push it a little bit more than they like to. They try to keep up with the home team. They feel that energy. So this crowd at home is a difference maker. BYU always plays with better pace at home. They defend better at home. And St. Mary's, if St. Mary's was bringing in a whole team of seniors and juniors, I'd go, well, they've been here, they've done that, they're used to that. But they haven't. This is a young basketball team. So the big test tonight is, will their young guys, and think about it, Nar is a fantastic player. He's just a sophomore. And so will they hold up to that kind of environment is the big question I have. And I think that's BYU's advantage. So I say it's a higher scoring game than St. Mary's would like it to be. And if BYU plays on attack and can get to the free throw line and force them to defend inside, then BYU has a really, really good chance to win this.
Zach Sellius is cleared to play. Do you think he'll get much run tonight with that bruised shoulder?
It's so hard to know. I know he scrimmaged in 5-on-5, and he looked like he was okay. his role is to be a really consistent shooter right now. The rebounds he gets are bonus. I mean, he does. He's a hustler. He's long and can defend. But I don't. You guys don't. I don't. Nobody thinks of him as, hey, he's a lockdown defender. He's a great rebounder. We're like, he's a shooter. So if that shoulder affects his ability to shoot, then his value is diminished just a little bit. And I think that Dave's got to play him, see how it goes. If he's knocking down shots at his normal pace, he gets significant minutes and he has a big impact on the game. If that is affecting his ability to extend and finish high and get good rotation on the ball like he always does, then his minutes are going to be limited. So I think this is a wait-and-see thing for Dave and for his staff to see if he can contribute normally. If he can, it's a huge plus for BYU.
There are obviously a ton of implications tonight for the West Coast Conference regular season championship and BYU's at-large resume and a chance to beat a ranked team and keep the home streak alive. It's at 16 right now. Blaine, where would BYU benefit the most tonight with a win over St. Mary's?
The biggest, in the big picture, it's an RPI game for them. And we keep talking about what they have to do in the back half. They're on target still. I'd like to see him get to 26 wins. You guys have talked about this with me on and off the air. We all feel like 26 wins, but it's 26 and a couple of good RPI wins that's going to get them there, not just 26. This is an RPI win. This is a team that has the national attention in St. Mary's. They're ranked high enough that BYU needs this. In the big picture, they need it, and they also need it to carry the momentum forward into this stretch run. They did a great job last year on the stretch run. They can do the same this year. This game launches them into that. It's the biggest game of the season. Up to this point, and you can talk about Gonzaga up there. Man, if they play like they did up there on the road at home, I heard you say somebody's prediction about what Corbin Kaufusi was going to do. Hey, if Corbin comes with a mindset that he does against Gonzaga, I don't know what it is about the Zags that gets Corbin just going. Whatever it is, he needs to think about that going into this game. But since that game, this is the biggest game, and because St. Mary's has been playing so well, it's probably bigger than that game right now.
Our Twitter question today is this: what is your bold prediction for tonight's BYU Hoops game? What do you think, Blaine?
Well, it's not a double-double for Corbin. What was the other one? 20 points for Zach?
Yes, and a double-digit win for BYU was the third.
Hey, my bold prediction is they play at BYU's pace, and so it gets up into the 80s, and BYU wins going away. So St. Mary's is going to have to be fouling down the stretch to try to get back into it, and BYU will make their free throws down the stretch and win this thing.
BYU clearly has they have the schedule lined up, Blaine, to make a run at a regular season championship in the West Coast Conference. I know that might sound like lunacy, but really the schedule works out for them because they have Pepperdine taken care of, St. Mary's at home tonight, and Gonzaga at home tonight, and 3 winnable road games. Do the Cougars have any sort of a shot, in your opinion, at winning the WCC?
Absolutely. I think I still believe, even with the loss, and remember we talked about what they had to do on the road, and they get the loss on the road down in SoCal. That damaged it a little bit, but I still look at it and go, okay, they're ahead of last year, not because of where they're at, but because of where Gonzaga is and where St. Mary's is and what they have left on their schedule. BYU's in control of their destiny. They absolutely have a shot, Spencer. Absolutely, but it starts tonight. If they that's why this game's so big. If they lose tonight, it damages that, because SMU's now or St. Mary's. I keep calling them SMU, and I don't want people to confuse them with that team down in Texas. But St. Mary's now is really in control of the race. So because St. Mary's is on top with just one loss in the league, this is it. They win this one, and then you ask me that tomorrow, and I go, oh yeah, now they got a better chance than not to at least tie for a conference championship. So tonight's big, really big.
I see it this way, too. If BYU beats Gonzaga on the road, they did that, and now a win over St. Mary's, they have to be the most confident team in the league in terms of what can we do now in the stretch. And then, hey, we can go into Vegas. We've beaten all these teams. We've beaten the top 3 teams in the West Coast Conference besides us, I guess, of the top 4. What kind of confidence boost or effect do you think that would have on the back stretch for BYU if they win tonight?
Oh, it's really big. And more than the confidence that it gives BYU, a little bit of doubt. Like right now, I don't even remember what movie it is where somebody says to You're not going to get inside my head. And they go, I'm already inside your head. Gonzaga would like to say that BYU's not all up in their head right now. They are. They are. They've beaten them twice in a row on their floor. It's the only team that's in the Zags' head. And so it's not just the confidence that BYU has. It's that they're in the heads of Gonzaga now going into that tournament and coming into Provo, where they're not coming in now saying, yeah, we're untouchable. We can beat anybody. That was an aberration. They know it wasn't an aberration now. So there's two sides to confidence. The confidence that you have and a little bit of chink in the confidence of your opponent. BYU has both of that now going into this back half.
Blaine Fowler with us on BYU Sports Nation, dual threat analyst. We've talked a ton about BYU basketball, and for good reason. Game of the year tonight on BYUtv. Blaine will be on the call with Dave McCann. But before you go, Blaine,
And you.
BYU football wraps up, according to Rivals.com and Scout.com, first top 50 recruiting class since 2010. Who will be the biggest impact player from the signing class that was announced yesterday for the upcoming season?
It's so hard to say. If I had to pick a couple of guys, I think Troy Warner. I mean, you just look at his body, and it looks like a body ready to play at this level. But sometimes the guys that have the biggest impact the fastest are JC guys. So I would go with Trineman. He's really explosive at wide receiver. And you guys have to tell me if I'm saying handsome, because I've just been calling him handsome for the last 4 months. But is it Tanielu?
Tanielu, yeah, handsome Tanielu.
Yeah, so we'll just, now that we've said it once, we'll just call him handsome, and I like that. They need some help there on the D-line, and I think when I saw this kid walking around, I'm going, oh, my goodness, this kid is a beast. So I think one of those three will be the one at the end of the season next year we go, wow, what an impact that brand-new guy had. When it comes to the rest of the group, this is a really, really high percentage class that are going on missions. So it's hard to know who's going to be good. It really is. I have a harder time getting excited about BYU's recruiting classes because we just don't know. And it's not we just don't know for 2 or 3 years. We don't know for 5 or 6 years. And so I'll take a wait-and-see attitude on the rest of them. But those are the guys that are going to be here next year. That's why I would pick one of those three to have a big, big impact.
Another zero beep interview for Blaine Fowler on BYU Sports Nation.
Hey, let's get off the air because when we do zero beeps, BYU wins. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay,
See ya. Bye. Cut him off. Get out of here. Leave.
Blaine Fowler.
We're still hearing him. Cut him off
on the Deseret
before we get a
First
beep.
Credit Union Hotline.